Hi, I'm here to share with you one of my favorite math resources, a website called achievethecore.org. So I'm going to pause for a second so I can turn my camera around so you can see my screen. Okay, so here we are at achievethecore.org, right there. And you'll just get a welcome screen. You want to go up here to classroom resources. And they do have some ELA literacy items that are pretty good, but I'm here to talk about math. So you want to hover over math and go to coherence map, because that is where the mind-blowing stuff is. So here they just explain a little bit about it. We're going to hit get started. We're going to hit get started again. And here we can select our grade level. They've got K-8 on here. So I happen to be in 5th grade. I'm going to click on it and then my domains pop up. I can choose from any of them. We've been living in fraction land like for the last several months, so I'm going to pick that one over there. So I'm going to click on fractions, whatever I want. So up here it's telling me my grade level and my domain, and then here are my fraction standards. So I'm going to scroll through, trying to get a good view of my screen here. I'm going to scroll through. So these are all my fraction standards, and there's a lot of them. We spend a lot of time in fractions. You can see this one here is identified as a major cluster. That's going to be important. That'll come up. I will absolutely discuss that in a couple minutes, but let's look at some stuff first. So this one right here, this first one, is about adding and subtracting using with unlike denominators, using equivalent fractions as a strategy. So I'm going to hit map standard. This, hold on to your seats. This is cool. Okay, there's a little tutorial about how to explore the map. How to navigate these little tools, what all these arrows and dotted lines mean. I'll let you explore all that, and then you can hit don't show me again if you want. So here we are. So here's that same fractions standard with adding, subtracting fractions, and I'm gonna zoom out because this is so cool. So I'm gonna zoom out that little magnifying glass. I'm gonna unzoom. Now here is that standard right there, and I'm gonna try to get out. Do you see all this? So this is my 5th grade standard. Over here, it's leading to other 5th grade. It could be 6th grade. It could be 7th grade, and it's going to connect them all. So this, students having mastery over this standard is going to impact all of these dark lines next year. So I'd say that this standard is a pretty big deal. Now let's say that my students are having trouble with this, and this is where the blog post is going to be addressing, is my students are having trouble with this. Well, where am I going to go? Well, guess what? This is last year's standard. So if I need help, I can go to last year's standard and look and see, well, what was it they're supposed to get then? Or this other one up here, if you kind of click and drag, this one up, whoops, let's get rid of you. This one over here looked pretty important. So this one here, and maybe they're having trouble with this one or this one. Where do I go? Well, there's plenty of stuff from previous years you can see right over here that supported it all. So I can go back in there. It's kind of a wormhole, I'm not gonna lie, but it's really, really interesting. So let's go back. So I can trace it. I can trace my standard backwards and I can trace it forwards. So let's go back to my standard. Now, this one happens to be really beefy. I'll try to find one that's not has so much stuff in it, but this one happens to have a lot of stuff with it. It's got an example task. So what does this look like? And I can download it. I don't have to just picture it from here. They pull a lot of their example tasks from right there, illustrative mathematics. I've seen them speak. They call themselves illustrative, so I'm gonna go with it. So there's a task there. It links to the progressions, which are basically documents that show the progressions. So where does your piece fall within the K-8 continuum or the 3-5 continuum, wherever your domain is. Like this fractions domain is a 3-5. So where is my 5th grade piece in this 3rd, 4th, 5th grade section? How does that build? You can download the progressions as PDFs. If you got some spare time on your hands, it's not the most interesting read, but it's worthwhile. Some of these boxes have tasks in them, so not only did I get a task above, but I can get an additional task. Some of them have additional lessons if I'm going to pull small groups, and I have utilized my Eureka resources, or I was looking for something to kind of supplement my Eureka resources. Some of them will have test items. This one happens to be Park, but I have seen some that are SBAC. So if I want to see what does this maybe look like as a tested standard. Now again, this is Park, so SBAC wouldn't be exactly the same, but I can get an idea of maybe what this might look like on testing for my students. And then at the bottom, they have this part called Focus. So I said I was going to get back to that green square. So each grade level will have one of these. So where do you focus in your grade level for math? So it's going to be where we should spend our majority of our time in order to meet our standards. So the bulk of our work in, let's say, 5th grade right here is going to be multiplication and division of whole numbers and fractions. And this is where it all is. So these are going to be my kind of, this is my stuff. This is my 5th grade standards, not all of them, but the major kind of areas. And these green boxes, they've identified as major clusters. So these are going to be the most bang for my buck items. If I'm going to spend extra time anywhere, it's going to be on place value. It's going to be multiplying and dividing numbers and decimals. It's going to be fractions and more fractions and volume. That's where I'm going to spend my time. Assuming my students are getting mastery, then I can definitely spend more time on measurement and data. And lastly, I do want to touch on these yellow ones, but they are additional clusters. These are things that are going to come up again next year. So if I'm running slow or running short on time, these are going to be the first to go, or to get kind of that sprinkle standard where I just sort of sprinkle it in. And then again with my required fluencies, in 5th grade, they're expected to multiply fluently with multi-digits. So I'm not worried fluency-wise if they can compute powers. No, I'm really just worried if they can multiply or not. So that's going to be the most bang for my buck. And then on the back, or the second page here, is going to be kind of the K-8 continuum, so you can see where your piece is and what perhaps is supporting it and where it's going. What are the main things that they talked about last year? How do they support what I'm doing this year? And what do I really need to get done to make sure that next year's class runs more smooth? Okay, so this is all in that focus piece of paper, which is awesome. So again, let's go back to, this is that one box, like the one box. Isn't that crazy? So let's say I want to go back to my standards. I don't want to look at just this one. I want to go back. So I'm going to go back to my list. And let's see if I can find another one. Okay, let's just look at this one. Let's map it, and we'll see if there's any stuff in here that we can use. So again, there's another example task. There's attached resources. Cool. The progressions are here again. There's additional tasks. Assessment. Here's a smarter balanced item. So I'm going to click on it and see what is that going to look like. Ew. I'm glad I'm not a 5th grader. That's gross. Anyway, you're going to look at this and say, well, what is this going to look like? Is this what it's looking like in Eureka, or do I need to expose them to something like this so that they're not thrown off by what it looks like rather than the content? Maybe my students know how to do that, but that format's going to throw them off. And again, there's the link to the focus. And again, the same focus document will be linked on every single one of these. Like, the focus document doesn't change. If I wanted to get, there's all my fraction standards again, but maybe I don't want to deal with fractions anymore. Maybe I want to go back and maybe I want to look at, I don't know, operations in base 10. So if I click on my first one, I'm looking for one that really isn't. No, this one has a lot of example tasks too. Some tasks, a Park item, there's my focus. It doesn't link to the progressions, which is weird, but maybe another one does. So I can go back and you can play with this. I can even go out of grade 5. If I want to look at 1st grade, what are they doing? Where does this go? I can map this. Okay, here's what we're doing in 1st grade, and here's where kindergarten was supporting me, and here's how I'm supporting an additional 1st grade standard for myself, some more 1st grade standards, and then down there at the bottom, a 2nd grade one. I hope you enjoyed looking at that resource. It's Really, you can spend so much time in there. It's like going down the rabbit hole, but I promise you it's really, really valuable. You're going to want to bookmark it so that you can get back to it. So again, go ahead and read through the blog post, and if I can ever help you out with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a good day.